Start the recording. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, today we are going to start our brand new chapter about the Middle Ages, okay? And we're going to start by talking about the Byzantine Empire. Now, if we can remember, we had briefly spoken about the Byzantine Empire before, okay? And what the Byzantine Empire was kind of the last remnants of the Roman Empire there in Europe, okay? Now, just a quick kind of reminder before we get into the actual presentation here, let's remember that when Rome fell, okay, Rome was really the fall of Rome was really only half of a fall, okay? The western half of Rome had pretty much fallen into chaos, okay? While the eastern half is going to kind of be alive and well in what's known as the Byzantine Empire, okay? Now, when I say it was Rome, it's not going to be 100% Rome, okay? And guys, before we get moving on, don't know why we're on our phones. Let's give it on our phones. Let's give it on our earpieces, all of that stuff, okay? So let's make sure we're focused. Anyway, as I was saying, we kind of say it like this last remnants of Rome, but understand the reason why we call it Byzantine and don't really call it Rome is that it's going to be like a combination of like the Roman Empire and the Greek Empire, the Hellenistic Empire into one. Okay, in fact, Rome, like for a good example of this, like the language of Rome was Latin. Okay, was the language of Latin. In Byzantine, the Byzantine Empire, the language over there was Greek. Okay, the way that the people dressed, the way that people acted was very, very different. But the fundamental ideas of Rome were still there. These ideas of republic, these ideas of democracy that we had seen before are still going to kind of be alive there. So let's look at our presentation real quick, and we'll get into this. Oops. Stop. Okay. Okay. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, so of course we saw this image before, and if we can remember, we had talked about obviously the fall of Rome. Now, some things, kind of circumstances around that fall of Rome, so we can all remember is that yes, obviously Rome had pretty much controlled this Mediterranean region of the world in Europe and Northern Africa for a very long amount of time. And of course, it was kind of the leading empire of the entire world. Had wealth, had power, was over a lot of people, the whole thing. But as time went on, we're going to see that Rome, I kind of equated Rome when we talked about Rome before, as being like one of these lottery winners you hear about, where they win a ton of money. They get a ton of money or a ton of power very, very quickly. All right. And what happens is that Rome doesn't really plan for the future. Okay. They spend in absolute excess. Now, it takes a while. They have a lot of money, a lot of wealth, a lot of power, all that stuff. But it takes time before what we see is that Rome stops bringing in the war loot. They stop bringing in all of this wealth that they had before. So their solution, tax people. And not only tax people, but tax the poor people very highly. So all of a sudden, before you know it, you have this mass difference, this mass gap between the wealthy up on top and then the poor people down on the bottom, okay? Now, this gap is going to widen to the point where very few people in Rome have any real wealth, okay? So because of this, their entire empire is going to start to crumble. Now, on top of that, we're also going to see that their military, the legionnaires start to decline a little bit because and not decline in the ability to fight and weaponry and all that stuff. They decline because their loyalty starts to go away from loyalty to Rome and loyalty towards whoever will pay them the most. So literally, these legionnaires might fight on one side of a conflict and then get hired by the other side of a conflict and fight on their side. So there's no real loyalty, okay? And then, of course, on top of everything, the people on top, the leadership, the emperors, the senators, the representatives start to become increasingly more and more corrupt. And because of this, again, it causes this whole thing to really collapse. Now, the thing that kind of leads, and this will be significant for today's material, so I do need you to pay attention to this. One other thing that leads to this massive decline in Rome is going to have to do with the Pope. Now, we had kind of mentioned it before when we talked about the organization of Christianity. We talked about how there's going to be this position that's going to come around known as the Pope, and the Pope at this time is like the leader of the church. Now, when I say the church, it's like all of Christianity, because at this point there was only one branch of Christianity, and that was it. And they kind of called it the Catholic Church. And of course, this Pope was the leader of that Catholic Church, centered in Rome. So that's why they refer to it as the Roman Catholic Church. Okay. Now, this Pope was not seen as being like Jesus or God, or even seen as being like a Messiah or a prophet like we saw with Muhammad and Islam. The Pope was just seen as being the next disciple of Jesus. Okay, so that's kind of what that role of the Pope is not that they are like in tune with God or got like these special abilities. It's the fact that they are this next disciple, right? So the Pope, because the western half of Rome is going to start to fall, the Pope leaves Rome. He basically gets the capital of the Christian world. They leave Rome and they move to Constantinople. Okay. Now, when they move, that's kind of like that last little symbol that this part of Rome is pretty much on their own. And before you know it, yes, the barbarian tribes from the north sweep in, they invade, take over this western half, and it falls. Yet the eastern half is going to stay around and, of course, be called this Byzantine Empire. So that is going to be significant, the fact that the Pope moved the church from Rome to Constantinople. Okay, that's going to be a big deal going into today's material. Now, when it comes to the Byzantine Empire, they are going to last for quite a long time. Okay, and again, in fact, people say, yeah, well, that Roman Empire is going to live on for many, many years in the future. In fact, the Byzantine Empire is going to last until about 1400. Okay, a little after 1400. So, when we say Rome itself, I mean it's going to last for about 1,000 years. Okay, or actually over that, about almost 2,000 years. Okay, so huge empire, lasted for a very long time. Of course, the last remnants were the Byzantine Empire. Okay, now here are some things that we got to look at as being significant about these Byzantines. Okay, so of course, the entire Byzantine world is going to center around the city of Constantinople. We talked about why the city of Constantinople was so important before when we were talking about Rome. Okay, it literally was like this front doorstep of Europe. So of course, anybody that wanted to travel in and out of the area had to go through the city of Constantinople. And controlling this city is going to allow that person to have a tremendous amount of wealth and a tremendous amount of power. Okay, so understand, the Byzantines are going to hang on to it, and we're going to see that as time goes on, the Byzantines' land is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller for to the point where there's going to be a long time where literally the city of Constantinople is the only thing that the Byzantines control, because the city is that important, until it finally falls. And we'll talk about why when it falls in just a little bit. Okay. Now, of course, this city of Constantinople is going to be an extremely important city, not just for trade, but for culture. We see, like we talked about a lot of other areas. We talked about Mecca the other day. Well, Constantinople will truly have this diverse population. People and travelers from all over the world are in and out of this city. So yes, probably the most important city in the world at this point is going to be Constantinople. Okay. And of course, you can see it right here. Now, of course, when it comes to the leadership of the Byzantine Empire, there are going to be several emperors that come through. But one emperor is probably going to be seen as being the most important, probably the most significant. And that's going to be this man right here in the middle. Now, his name is going to be Justinian. Okay, and he will be the not the first emperor of the Byzantines, but he's going to be the most significant. I guess you say emperor of the Byzantines. Now, what he's going to do is he is going to try to preserve that Roman law code. He's going to try and preserve that culture of Rome that was so strong in the past and keep it in his own empire. Now, on a side note, of course, you can see this tapestry here. This is kind of like a woven cloth, and you see Justinian is going to be the guy in the middle. And I want you to notice this, because you'll see this going forward into a lot of our Renaissance art, medieval art, things like that. But whenever you see anybody depicted with a circle around their head, that's going to indicate someone that has been sainted by the Catholic Church. Okay, so literally that's like the halo they have over their head, like an angel might have. So when you look at this art, and we'll see it several times throughout this class in the next few weeks, you'll see a figure with a circle around their head that indicates they are sainted. They are a part of the, again, they are kind of given this right by the Catholic Church. Anyway, so back to why Justinian is going to be significant, okay? What he is going to do is kind of rally the troops, okay? He is going to band together the soldiers that are loyal to him. He's going to band together his people, and he's going to make a mission to try to go out and reclaim as many of the former Roman lands as possible. Now, Justinian is going to be encouraged by two people mainly, okay? The first person he's going to be encouraged by is going to be the Pope, because the Pope wants him to go and take Rome back, okay? He says, yeah, this Constantinople's all well and good, but I want you to retake Rome so the Pope can try to move back and live where the Pope was before, in the Vatican, okay? Now, the other person that is going to be a very, very influential, very, very important to Justinian is going to be this person right here. Now, this is going to be his wife. His wife's name is Theodora, okay? Now, Theodora is kind of a crazy story about her. Obviously, she's the wife of the emperor. She's going to be this empress. And what happens is instead of just sitting back and letting her husband kind of run the show and be this vocal person, she is going to be very, very headstrong. She's going to be very, very intelligent, a very strong woman, okay? Now, the odd thing about Theodora is that Justinian is going to see her, is going to kind of meet her when she was an entertainer, okay? She was kind of like this dancer, I guess you can say, like this exotic dancer that caught his eye, and he like fell in love with her. He marries her, and everybody's like, oh, she's just this kind of low-grade woman. Well, she was not. She was a very strong, very intelligent woman. In fact, she is going to advise Justinian on a lot of things that make him this strong emperor that he's going to be known for. In fact, when you look at this, just like we saw with the artwork of Justinian, you'll see that halo around Theodora, where she will be sainted by the Catholic Church as well. So again, that's in high esteem that they kind of put her as far as history is concerned. Now, one of the big claims to fame of Theodora is going to be this. Now, obviously, any kind of growth, any kind of leadership, there's going to be pushback. In fact, there's going to be a riot that takes place in Constantinople, where these people revolt and they try to overthrow Justinian. Now, what Justinian is going to do, and a lot of other emperors have done in the past, is instead of stay there and kind of watch this riot, they would like retreat, go somewhere else and send their army in. Okay, so Justinian was getting ready to like turn tail and run, and Theodora says, no, these people do not respect you. And if you leave, they're going to see you as a coward. Like, she is literally the only one that makes Justinian stay. And he ends up staying. He kind of oversees them putting this revolt down. And what happens is Justinian gets a tremendous amount of respect from his people because he showed bravery. He didn't run away. And 100%, this was 100% attributed to his wife, Theodora, that told him to stay and kind of put down this revolt. Okay. Now, as far as Justinian goes as well, we'll see that perhaps the most famous thing that he's going to be known for, the most important thing he's going to be known for, is this concept known as the Justinian Code. Now, what the Justinian Code is going to do is it's going to basically be this comprehensive, like it says, legal code that incorporated the laws of the Roman Empire with, it should say Roman, it should say Byzantine Empire, excuse me. The laws of the Byzantine Empire with those of the Roman Empire. Okay, so he's going to combine those together and kind of, again, keep this culture, keep the law, keep all of that of Rome together. It was broken into four parts: the Institutes, the Digest, the Novelle, and the Codex Justinian. Okay, and of course on these, you can see here, these are all, again, preserving the law, preserving the culture, and we're going to keep that thing going. Okay, now a lot of what we know of like the democracy of the time, the republic of the time, and the laws that they kept, and the laws that we even keep today are reserved from this Justinian Code that he keeps around. So again, this is going to be very important. This, again, Justinian Code, this law code of that Justinian is going to implement, that kind of brings these ideas of Rome forward. Okay. Now next, like I said earlier, Justinian, one of his big goals, and of course this is going to be from his wife Theodora as well, is to go out and try to reclaim these Roman lands. So they will amass this giant army, and they're going to go out and retake that Italian peninsula and push back those barbarian tribes. Okay, then they'll go out and start taking over other little chunks of land. So we can see here that they're going to go out, and of course you can see this General Belisarius is he's going to kind of give this assignment to. They're going to go out and they're going to retake Italy and southern Spain. They're going to acquire the Balkans, which is going to be all that land around present-day Greece. They're going to acquire Western Asia, which is going to be like Asia Minor or Turkey today. They will even go back into northern Africa, which is going to be Egypt. Okay. Now, what's going to make them so strong is we see that at this time, the Byzantines are going to kind of use this updated weapon, this new technology that we really hadn't seen before, that nobody else had really had before this. They're going to make use of this thing called Greek fire. Okay. Greek fire. And you can kind of see it right there. Now, what this Greek fire basically is like this petroleum jelly that has kerosene in it. So in essence, it's this really sticky jelly that they squirt out on their enemies that's flammable, highly flammable. And so what they do is they either light it as they shoot it out, and it basically turns into like napalm or turns into like a flamethrower, or they spray it on their enemies, they shoot one flaming arrow into a boat or into a region, and it burns everything. So when you are going against enemies that want to get in those phalanx lines and line up and get all nice, tightly compacted, you can spray this Greek fire into the middle of that group, and it's going to incinerate and burn and kill everybody. Okay, so this weapon that they may use is going to push back those barbarian tribes. It's going to be able to retake those lands that they had lost before. Okay, and bring all that back in to Rome or the Byzantine Empire. Okay, now before you know it, this is pretty much what the Byzantine Empire will look like. But I want you to understand, this is like the greatest extent of the Byzantine Empire. They're not going to be able to expand any longer. In fact, they'll hold all this land. It's not all that was Rome, but it's going to be very close. But understand, it was a very brief hold. I mean, imagine this. Imagine I had a baseball in my hand, and I decided to get that baseball, and I tried to throw it as high up over my head as I could. Okay? I don't know how far I could throw it, but let's just pretend I can maybe throw it like 30 feet over my head. Okay, so I get it and I choke that thing up as high as I can. Well, the Byzantine Empire is going to be like that baseball. When it leaves my hand, it's going to expand. But when it gets to the highest peak of where I can throw it, it's going to immediately start dwindling back down. Okay, so the point I'm telling you is that they're going to stretch, but all of a sudden these groups are going to start pushing back in, and they're going to start pushing everything back down, and they're going to like lose those lands pretty quickly. We'll also see that the formation for the first time, what becomes known as countries, start to push back this idea of empire and conquest. So, for example, when the Franks, and we'll get into the Franks more so tomorrow, when the Franks established themselves in this area that was known as Gaul, they will push back and prevent the Byzantines from taking over that land. When the Pope gets himself back in Rome and kind of establishes dominance in the Italian peninsula, that will push back the Byzantine Empire. And the group that we just got done talking about, when the Muslims start pushing in through northern Egypt or northern Africa and Egypt, they will push back that Byzantine reach as well. Okay, so that's going to prevent them from being able to just kind of have like this dominant empire that we had seen the Romans had for hundreds of years. That will push them back pretty quickly. Okay, so now, of course, in the city of Constantinople, there's going to be some very significant things that are going to happen there. Okay, in fact, whenever you see, and we talk about Constantinople, in fact, we saw the image of this earlier too. You're gonna hear about this magnificent building that's going to be constructed, this church called the Hagia Sophia. Okay, now this is going to be the main church there in Constantinople. All right, and again, this is going to be kind of like this religious center. Like I told you, the Pope had moved to Constantinople briefly. Well, this was intended to be the Pope's church. All right. Now today, if you look at this church, if you look at this building right here, it actually resembles a mosque. Because guess what? Today it is a mosque. Okay. There will be a time that the Turks will come in and conquer the city that we'll talk about at the end. And yes, they convert the Church of Hagia Sophia into a mosque that they use today for Islam. Anyway, as part of Justinian's unification project, he asked for the largest church in the world to be built in Constantinople. The Hagia Sophia would be built, also known as the Church of the Holy Wisdom. Used magnificent structures and a massive dome would later be converted to a mosque, like we had mentioned. Now, the thing about this church, okay, of course, the high domes and the arches and the spires. I mean, there had been no other building in the world that resembled this church at this point. So this was seen as being the most magnificent building ever constructed at this point. And again, it is a massive building that they do put together. Now, of course, there's another image of that Hagia Sophia right there. Now, there starts to become a problem, okay? Because think of it this way. This was built for the Pope, but the Pope up and leaves and goes back to the Vatican after Justinian or the Byzantines had taken over all that territory, right? So what happens is in these major cities, all right, the Pope or the Catholic Church would appoint a head religious official over each of these cities, okay? We had talked about that before, like the provisional governors that they had in the Roman Empire. Well, the church is going to do the same thing. So in the city of Constantinople, the top church official there was known as the Patriarch of Constantinople. He was the main member of the church there. Now, this Patriarch of Constantinople, after the Pope has already left, he is going to kind of be walking around the church of Hagia Sophia. And he's going to make an observation, okay? Now, he's going to say this, and again, some of us in this room may be Catholic, some of us in this room may not be Catholic, but you kind of maybe should you'll probably be able to understand what I'm trying to say here. But he walks around this church, okay? And those of y'all that have ever been to a Catholic church, there are images everywhere. There might be an image of Jesus on the cross. There might be an image of the Virgin Mary. There might be an image of various saints, whether they be like stained glass or paintings or frescoes or a statue, okay? In fact, in the Vatican today, there are like statues there. Like there's one, for example, I think it's the statue of St. Peter. And it's like good luck if you go and you like rub the foot of St. Peter to the point where like the foot is like been like worn down over time of people rubbing that foot. So again, you've got all these statues, all these murals, all this stuff. And the patriarch makes an observation saying people are praying to these images. They're praying to the Virgin Mary. They're praying to St. Peter. They're praying to St. Michael. He says, when you look at the 10 Commandments, it says you're not supposed to pray to anybody besides God. So he makes a point of saying, isn't that like against God's plan? Isn't that against the 10 Commandments that you pray to Mary or you pray to Michael or Gabriel or whomever or Peter or whomever? That's like wrong, okay? And the fact that we have all these icons, and that's all the different images, these icons in this church is messed up. So the Patriarch of Constantinople is going to start this thing that becomes known as the iconoclastic controversy. Okay, the iconoclastic controversy, okay, basically saying, what should the role of all of these images be? Should we get rid of all of them and just keep the cross and just keep Jesus? Or even in that case, praying to Jesus, is that wrong? Because if we're going to separate Jesus from God and say Jesus is the Son of God, should we only pray to God and not pray to these crucifixes or these images of Jesus? What should we do? Okay, so this causes kind of a massive grumbling there, I guess you can say, within the church, okay? To the point where the word gets over to the Pope. Now, the Pope is over in the Vatican. And of course, the Patriarch of Constantinople is in charge of the biggest city in the Byzantine Empire. Well, all of a sudden, before you know it, the Patriarch and the Pope start butting heads. Because when it comes to Catholicism, and again, a lot of these Catholics at this time, they see the Pope as being the authority. So, like if the Pope walks out and says, hey, the sky is red today, well, is he saying the sky is red because he's crazy? Is he saying the sky is red because God told him to say that? What should we do? Well, the Patriarch of Constantinople comes out and says the sky is blue, and the Pope says the sky is red. Who are you supposed to listen to? Who are you supposed to believe? Who is God in favor of? Okay, so that makes kind of a big issue. Now, the Pope says we will make a decision on these icons. We will make a decision on whether we'll allow the icons or not allow the icons, pray to them, and all that. So the Pope calls a meeting, does not allow the Patriarch of Constantinople to go to this meeting, and in the end of this meeting, they will agree that it is okay to pray to Jesus, and it's okay to pray to the Virgin Mary and all these various saints and all this stuff. Now, this iconoclastic controversy becomes so big that the Patriarch of Constantinople decides to split from the Catholic Church. Now, this is going to mark, the iconoclastic controversy is going to mark the first major split within the Catholic Church. Now, in the Western half, you will have the Roman Catholic Church, okay? And I'm just going to call it the RCC, the Roman Catholic Church. Now, on the other side, which is going to be over here in the East, you will have what's known as the Eastern Orthodox Church. Now, the Roman Catholic Church will be headed up by the Pope that lives in the Vatican. The Eastern Orthodox Church is going to be headed up by the Patriarch of Constantinople that lives in, obviously, Constantinople, okay? So this is going to be huge, okay? In fact, even today, I mean, like I said, there's going to be other breaks and other splits within the church, but this is going to be the first major one. And these Eastern Orthodox Christians, you see them more today in places like in parts of Greece, in places like Russia. That's going to be the area where we really see this kind of Christianity is going to be embraced. Okay, so of course more images of the inside of the Church of Hagia Sophia, Eastern Orthodox. So we see that. So the Eastern Orthodox faith is going to differ from that of the Roman Catholicism. Okay, some of these ideas include Patriarch is the head of the Eastern Orthodox Church, not the Pope. They don't see the Pope as being this authority figure. The Patriarch of Constantinople is. The lack of icons, okay? They said that they believe that it is blasphemous to have images of a crucifix or the Virgin Mary or Peter or Michael or even the baby Jesus. It's seen as being against the rules, blasphemous. You should be turning your prayers and your attention towards God, okay? Masses were said in Greek instead of Latin. Okay, so of course they spoke, obviously spoke Greek. Patriarchs were dominated by emperors due to their abolition of the idea of primacy, church leaders above the king. So in essence, what it says here is that yes, like an emperor like Justinian would actually have authority over the church, would have authority over this patriarch. And so even though the patriarch was like the head of the church, the real head of the church was the emperor at the time. Okay, so that to Catholics, that to other Christians would be seen as being wrong, saying that, okay, well, now you're saying that this man has authority over the church when it should be God as being the authority of the church. So that is going to be a big difference in the ideals and the beliefs, okay? Next. Okay, so obviously, like it says here, this split is going to be known as the Great Schism. Okay, schism means like a gap or a split in between two things. Okay, again, a major division occurred with Christianity was with the establishment of the Orthodox Church. As Christians made pilgrimages to Constantinople, many Westerners brought their icons with them, okay, their crosses and things like this. Now, citizens of Constantinople who were Orthodox Christians who did not believe in icons and chose to destroy those icons brought into the city. So this causes this butting of the heads. If one group believes in this as their religion and the other does not, and they start destroying those icons, major issue, okay? Now, the Pope made a decree stating that icons were allowed anywhere Christians could travel. The Patriarch would refuse the papal orders and the state that the Pope held no power in Constantinople. And of course, this is going to cause this major issue, okay? Now, and we'll talk about excommunication and things like that in a little bit, okay? Or we'll talk about that later on down the road. But anyway, so this obviously is a big ordeal, okay? So we need to remember this, the Great Schism, the iconoclastic controversy is going to cause that Great Schism, and we see this new variation of Christianity that starts up, okay? Now, back to the city of Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire. Now, what we're going to see is that things are not going to be going well in the Byzantines, okay? Like we talked about before, yes, they're able to conquer land, take over territory, all of this stuff. But like that baseball I said, I'm going to throw straight over my head. Once it hits that peak, it starts to decline very sharply. So what we see is that, yes, just like in Rome, money starts to become scarce. There's not a lot of it go around. And those that have it are up on top, and everybody else below them is not getting any. So we see things like, massive poverty, and we're going to see throughout the Byzantine Empire, even in Constantinople, to the point where they are going to resort to the same tactics that we saw in Rome. They are going to build arenas. They're going to build tracks. They're going to build these gladiator arenas called the hippodrome. You see right here. And in the hippodrome, they'll have all these competitions to try to distract the people, just like Rome did. Okay. Now, it's going to get messed up in here. I really want to tell you that, where you might have like these races going on, the chariot races or the gladiator fights, where somebody might die. And obviously, the gladiators, we know that they were killing each other, but they would kill the other person, and the crowd would literally cheer to see if they could have the dead body for meat to eat, because they were starving so much. They had no money for food, and so they were willing to resort to eating like human bodies. That's how messed up things were in Constantinople at this time, because again, their society was starting to crumble. Now, at the same time, on the outside of the walls of Constantinople, we will see that the city is going to be under constant siege. Like I told you guys, this city is going to be an extremely important city. The Muslim people from the area are going to want the city. So we'll see that the history of of Constantinople is going to be one of repeated conquest of people trying to take it over. Now, the Byzantines will build these high walls, and they will keep these Muslims out, and they will hold on for quite a while until, like I told you earlier, until about 1450. And in 1450, they will finally get overtaken by the Ottoman Turks. And when they come in, they will rename the city from Constantinople, and they will call it Istanbul. Okay. Now, when the city falls, you see the fall of Constantinople here. Okay. This is going to mark, I guess you could say, technically the end of the Roman Empire. Okay. But after numerous attempts to enter Constantinople by foreign tribes, the Seljuk Turks, and then of course the Ottomans with them, would be successful in breaking through. They were these East-oriented Turks who would take up the mantle left by the Abbasids. Okay, so this other tribe that was before them. Okay, Constantinople would become Istanbul. It would become the Turkish capital at this time. Now, as far as the Eastern Orthodox Church goes, all right, when all this was going down and all these sieges were happening, the Eastern Orthodox Church that was centered there in Constantinople, they are going to move. Okay, they're not going to move over to Rome, because obviously they've got an issue with the Roman Catholic Church. They are going to move north to Kiev. Okay, the same Kiev you might hear of today with all these issues going on with Ukraine and Russia today. They will move to Kiev, and after they move to Kiev, of course, as we see that this Russian culture is going to start to emerge, and we'll talk about Russia later on. They will move then from Kiev to the city of Moscow, and that's going to be kind of the center or the capital of the Eastern Orthodox Church even today. Okay, so they move out of Constantinople as things are starting to fall here. They move up and then end up in Moscow. And just like with Rome, when they move, that kind of marks the end of Constantinople, end of the empire, and they will fall as well. Okay, let's see here. So, why is this so important? Why is this such a big deal? Okay, so we can see here, fall of Constantinople had an incredible effect on world history. Okay, here's going to be kind of the reasons for this and why this is important. So, a complete change of perspective in terms of trade with Asia. Countries in Europe now had to find new ways to arrive in Asia, which would lead to this age of exploration. Okay, what that means is this. Now it was kind of dangerous to go to these territories. Plus, and if we can kind of use our imaginations here, our brains to kind of think about what the map of Europe looked like, if you were from England, if you were from Spain, if you were from France, you are literally the furthest away from trying to travel all the way out to China. You had to find an easier way to make this trip. So yes, these ideas of trying to get there by sea start to become huge by taking boats, by finding an alternate route to get to Asia. becomes extremely important. Okay, so yes, leads to this age of exploration, major time in history. Okay, next, a reliance on new trading. 1 second, guys, give me 2 seconds here. Okay, reliance on new trading system known as the Hanseatic League, which involved North European city-states. So what that's going to mean is that they are going to start up these kind of trade guilds, these to kind of control and to try to regulate trading lines and trading lanes that go in and out of this territory. We also see the rise of new empires in Europe as because of this. So because of this, we see, yes, like I said, Spain, France, England start to become major players on the world as a result of the fall of the Byzantine Empire. Okay, all right, that is where we're going to wrap up for today. So what I need you guys to do is, you guys have got about 15 minutes or so. We're going to watch a very quick video talking about the Byzantine Empire, and then we'll be done for the day. So y'all sit tight for a second. Let me get the video started. Hang on one second.